This is the Life's Journey with Best Friends podcast. Listen as two best friends for over 40 years share our experiences, insights, and unique stories. Sydney Barucci is a licensed massage therapist, structural integration therapist, stretch therapist, and Reiki master practitioner, specializing in myofascial bodywork, manual lymphatic drainage, and abdominal massage.
Her work is highly holistic, and she always individualizes every session, utilizing a multitude of bodywork modalities to meet her clients' needs and get the best results when working with them to achieve their long-term health goals.
She can also assist you in diving into deeper healing realms using intentional and intuitive movement, sound healing, meditation, inner child honoring, mirror work, breath work, Bowen therapy, and the emotion code.
Her practice is located at 100 Trade Center in Woburn, Mass. She's open 7 days a week, and you can make an appointment with her at 781-999-3612.
Or also reach out to her by Gmail at sydneybarucci@gmail.com. That's SYDNEYBARRUCCI@gmail.com. Also, check her out at bysydney.glossgenius.com or on Instagram at Sydney Barucci. Hi, BFFers. Welcome to the next episode of Life's Journey with Best Friends. I'm Noelle.
And I'm Diana.
We have a special guest today. Her name is Brittany Simque. She's a lifestyle coach who has successfully lost over 200 pounds.
That's amazing.
I know. It's crazy. So I started following her on Facebook, I think just like some time ago. I think like the algorithm kind of like played a part in that. You know, it was one of those things, you know, we're searching diets or whatever.
Right. Losing weight or whatever.
Yeah. And, you know, she came up and I started looking at her stuff and I started following her. And then that was like back in May, I think. And then it was even before that. But then in May, she started to do 75 hard. So, and
explain 75 hard.
Yeah. So 75 hard is like this really intense. Yeah, I've tried it, but like program that you follow for 75 days, and it's no alcohol. You have to follow a diet. You exercise twice a day for 45 minutes, and one of them has to be outside. You have to read 10 pages of a self-help book. I forget what else, but it's like she can talk more about it. But then I started like sending her messages, like private messages, being like, oh, you got this, you're doing so great. And we just developed kind of a friendship, and we talked, and, you know, we message all the time, and, you know,
that's awesome.
It was really cool. So.
Well, that's great. Her story is incredible. It's honest. It's so relatable to us, especially, you know, we go up and down, and it's very inspiring. And I'm hoping our BFFers will really enjoy this opportunity to listen to what she has to say and hear her story.
Yes.
Interesting.
I thought she would, you know, we thought she would be a great fit. So I was really happy.
It's right up our alley.
Yeah, I was happy when she was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it, you know, so.
Yeah, I can't wait to speak to her. I mean, just because, you know, we're her.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we're older, you know what I mean? And she overcame it. You and I are still like fighting the battle. So maybe she can give us some advice that might put us over that edge.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. Yeah. And her and I have had some conversations about the weight loss that she does, and she is involved in a program. I know she'll tell us more about that. So
I wonder how she feels about the shot, the Ozempic type stuff.
So she actually does talk about that on her Facebook. So it's not that she's against it at all. So she can definitely give us the details on that. and other some other influencers that I follow too are understanding that the shot is actually a tool. It's not a means to an end. It's not a cheat. It's something that can help you, kind of like the gastric bypass too. Yeah. People think it's an easy way out. It's really not. It's just a tool to get you where you need to be. Think about it. If someone said to you, tomorrow morning I could have you wake up and be 60 pounds lighter, you'd be like, hell yeah, I can maintain that. I got that. Well, that'd be awesome, but can you really? You have to learn. You need these tools in order to actually be like, okay, I've lost that 60 pounds. How do we keep that off? So these are the kind of things that that hopefully she can teach everyone. And I know that she's learning. So
she's going to definitely have some good advice for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm excited.
Hi, Brittany.
Hello.
Hi.
I know. I've been doing that with my hair.
Okay, so I'm Noelle. I know we've talked on the phone, but we've never met.
Yeah, hi, Noelle.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So we're already recording. Don't worry about it. We'll edit a bunch of stuff out. We've already done our little bit of introduction. I just basically said that you're a lifestyle coach. You've lost over 200 pounds. And kind of how I found you, like that the algorithm just the Facebook algorithm put us together. And then when you were doing 75 hard, that's kind of when we started to talk, because I had reached out to you a little bit. So we've already sent you some of the questions, but feel free to talk about anything that you want. Okay. I don't know. So this is our little podcast that we've had for about a year and a half now. If you follow us, we probably have about 300 subscribers on Facebook, around the same on what do you call it? YouTube. We're trying to reach out. So yeah, so it'll be cool. But your story's been very inspirational to me. And I'm so happy that you decided to join us and tell us more.
Thank you.
Very excited.
All right. So you and I kind of started talking when you were doing 75 hard. Tell me a little bit about 75 hard. I described it a little bit, but I'm not sure if I got everything, and not ever really completing it. It's a little bit different. So tell us in your words, what the hell was that like?
Well, I did 75 hard. So just to preface, I did it after I lost my 200 pounds. So it was kind of like a way to just keep myself motivated, I guess. Obviously, we know when we lose weight, keeping the weight off is generally just as hard as losing the weight, if not harder, if I'm being honest. And so what I was trying to do was kind of level up in my fitness, I guess, and just I really think 75 Hard is a great program for habit installation. So really trying to figure out, okay, like where do I need to nail down some new habits, or maybe not even new habits, but just really enforce some of the old habits that I did have. So essentially with 75 Hard, you do a few different things. You commit to 2 workouts a day, each one 45 minutes, one outside. You drink 100 ounces of water every single day. You commit to reading 10 pages of a nonfiction book or a self-help book or something like that. You take a picture of your progress every single day.
That's right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different components. And then you follow a nutrition plan. 75 Hard doesn't give you a plan. They just kind of offer it as a way of you just committing to whatever plan that you have. So I followed one of our nutrition plans that we offer. But it was really helpful in the sense that I just was, I guess, kind of struggling to really commit to some of those habits again. And so, yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Well, and I think the biggest obstacle for me when I tried it was there was no alcohol for 75 days.
Yes, and no alcohol or cheat meals. That is the last thing. And that's interesting because that is not an issue for me. And so I know for some people that can be challenging. So
definitely. It was so Diana and I had said, all right, we're going to do this. Or we committed to, I don't remember what it was. We committed to not drinking for something. And She went
I
for
think
like
we were
90
doing
days.
like a soft challenge, not
Yeah.
the hard. That's what it was.
And she went like 90 days, and I think I lasted 20. So
20, I think you lasted 2.
no, that was this last time, except so we tried it again. I lasted 3 days, and then I just did sober October. So I did
Yes.
do
Oh, I love it.
32 days. So
Good. Yeah.
so that was fun. But so I don't want to backtrack a little bit, but tell us about like your journey to get to lose the 200 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
And
what made you start?
yeah, and that was one of your guys' questions that you had sent
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. I get this question asked a lot. People always say, okay, like what motivated you? Or, you know,
Yes.
what was that like deciding factor? And by the time, so I'm 35 right now. By the time I was 26, I had already been diagnosed as morbidly obese. I had already been diagnosed as with high blood pressure, so I was on medication for that. Already diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic. Already had pulmonary embolisms, which are blood clots in your lungs,
Oh my
which
goodness.
started in my legs, but I didn't even know it, and I wouldn't go to the doctor, right? So then they traveled to my lungs. I was so sick. I had struggled with anxiety and depression my entire life. I remember getting on medication as young as probably 14.
Oh, wow.
And I've struggled with food addiction and binge eating disorder for since I can remember. And so I really struggled with eating and weight gain for the entirety of my life. But when I became an adult and went to college, I mean, it just went out of control. And, you know, I was one of those people, I've tried every single thing out there. I mean, you can name a diet plan, I've done them all. And I remember my mom, God bless her, she tried to help me through all of this. I mean, in high school, I remember doing Slim Fast with her and, you know, I don't know, there's like all these ones, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And she took me to the doctor, you know, they like checked, of course, they're like, oh, it's her thyroid. Like, and honestly, it was truly, I have a very severe food addiction and a binge eating disorder. And none of those were really, I mean, talked about or like really focused on, I guess, even in my counseling. And so, yeah, anyway, I became a high school math teacher and I was struggling to do my job. In fact, and I hate to say this sometimes, but I really feel like I struggled to get a job because of my health concerns. So when I finally got my job, I was so excited. But at that point, I was about 375 pounds and I was struggling to teach in my classroom. I mean, from a stool most of the day, my kids, I mean, were not getting the best of me. Neither was my family, right? And so I went back to the doctor. The doctor basically said I needed weight loss surgery. So I was pre-approved for the surgery, but when COVID hit, I wasn't able to have it. They canceled it. So I went through all of like the counseling, all the stuff, and then wasn't able to actually have the surgery, which I was pretty disappointed. I mean, I went through all of the stages. I had a lot of grief, like,
right. That's a big disappointment. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think, you know, I just had this in the back of my mind. I was like, well, you know, I'm never gonna get past this. And of course I go into a binge, right? And continue gaining more. And I actually was inspired. I saw another teacher that I worked with. So like I said, it was during 2020. I saw another teacher that I'd worked with had posted on Facebook actually that she had lost about 80 pounds and was keeping it off in quarantine. I was like, what is she doing?
Wow.
I reached out to her because I know her, right? Like in person, seen her at the school. I actually didn't even recognize the picture of her on the Facebook. And I was like, girl, what are you doing? And so she told me about this program and I ended up joining Optavia in June of 2020 and came to this program. Actually, I have my before picture. This is look at what I look like.
Amazing.
Crazy to me.
This was the day that I started the program and I was a huge skeptic, right? Like anything else, I was like, oh, I've tried all the things, but I just decided to come in with an open mind, and I was like, what else do I have to lose at this point? I'm either going to die by the time I'm age, you know, 40, or I can figure out what am I actually going to do to like get myself better. And so I don't know if there was like a necessarily like this defining moment because I think I had a series of moments and a lot of scary things. I mean, when I was in the hospital with those blood clots, I really thought I was going to die. And at that point, I hadn't even made a choice to change my eating habits or to change my life. It was like, what's it going to take, you know?
Right, right.
No,
Yeah,
right,
you're
right.
looking at death. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sometimes
you're
it takes
staring at
that.
it and your family is there crying, right? And you're like, and what's crazy is when you're in those moments, and I go back to this girl that I was in these photos because my face says a lot about where I was at. And you don't have, it's so interesting because I didn't feel like I had control. I didn't feel like I could get out of that situation and I had no hope, you know, and I really truly was like, there's nothing. I'm not going to be able to do this. There was a lot of self-doubt. There was a lot of mental and emotional changes that needed to be made. But I'm so thankful. So I ended up, like I said, starting this program in June of 2020. Um, my first month, I again was a huge skeptic. After my first month, I lost pretty quickly. I lost like over 20 pounds, and I was like, "What the heck?
Ooh,
Like, why did I not do this?" Right? So
yeah.
I actually was doing it in hiding. I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell my husband. I put it on my personal credit card.
Oh my gosh.
And so when after that first month, I was like, all right, I'm gonna commit to this. Like this is clearly helping me with the weight loss.
Right. It's working.
And the cool thing about the program is there's a variety of components. So instead of it just being about this diet, right? I mean, the food is one component. I also had a coach who was the teacher that I worked with who walked by me side by side, called me every single week, like checked in on me. And I needed that. I needed that.
Definitely. Yep.
Yeah, and the community that we offer to our clients is just absolutely insane. Our Facebook community, just thousands of members, all people doing this journey. And that's what inspired me to actually reach out. I had talked to her on the phone probably 6 months before I decided that I should try it. And I was in that Facebook group and I was like, oh my gosh, these are people just like me that are doing this. And then, of course, like the educational piece, I truly did not know the severity of my eating disorder until I did this program, until I worked through the mental and emotional components. And it just surprises me how many people that I talk to that don't realize that they have a severe food addiction or even some eating disorder. I mean, we can't diagnose that. Obviously, you have to do that through a therapist, but
right.
You know, unless you're willing to go in,
right,
you need to get the help, right?
And if you've always been doing that, you're like, okay, this isn't an issue. This is just me. This is who I am. You know,
right.
You don't realize
this is my cycle.
Yeah, exactly.
And it can feel like this cycle that you can never get out of, right? You're on this hamster wheel and you're like, oh, I'll go faster. And like, even the faster you go, you're still not going to get out of it, right?
Yeah. Right.
I think we both, Noelle and I, have been there.
Yes,
been
absolutely.
There.
Yep. Still going through it.
Still same here.
And I will tell you, when you get to your goal, I mean, I lost my 200 pounds in about 16 months on our nutrition plan. And so that was back in 2020. So, and so 2021. So I've been at my goal weight for about 3 years. And that's what I always tell people too, like the staying at your goal is just as hard because once you come out of this, really structured eating plan, which I still have to have myself on a very structured eating plan because my eating disorder, causes me to go into binges and I have to be in control. Yeah. So
that doesn't go away.
It doesn't go away ever. And the food addiction, specifically for me, I have a sugar addiction. That doesn't go away. I've worked through Overeaters Anonymous and I've worked through the 12-step program. And one of the biggest things that I learned is abstinence is key. So for me, I didn't partake in any Halloween candy last week. Why? Because as soon as I have my one hit, I will be in a binge and it's going to be there, and so I really had to, over the last 3 years, I've really had to experiment with myself and say, okay, what are my triggers? Like, what are these foods that are causing me to go into these binges? And I've really gotten to narrow that down, which is kind of cool because I actually listen to my body now, whereas this girl didn't listen to anything. Like garbage. And I would just be like, oh, that's my life. And it's so crazy when you're actually in control and you're like, that's not how your life has to be. I don't have to live like that anymore.
Do you even remember what that was like now? Because now it's been a few years. Like, do you look back at and say, wow, that wasn't me, or like,
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. And I do a lot of posts on my Facebook page kind of about this because again, I feel like part of my healing is, and it's interesting, I use my Facebook page as a way to journal. I'm not a like paper and pencil kind of
me
journal
neither.
person.
Yeah.
And my therapist is like, oh, and I'm like, that's just not me. But what I do enjoy is posting on social media, and that is my outlet. And so it's crazy. I actually had a memory pop up from 7 years ago as a picture of me that I had taken. I actually didn't post it on Facebook because of course I would never post pictures of myself on Facebook prior. But I sent it to my mom because I had a panic attack one day. I was walking into the school, so I worked at the school, and it had snowed and there was all this ice on the ground and my foot slipped like slightly. I didn't fall, but because of my size and like I was petrified that I was going to fall and I wouldn't be able to get up. And I had a panic attack. I was bawling like in the parking lot. I stood there for 20 minutes until another teacher came. It was actually my now coach, but she came because we worked at the same school, and she like got me to get inside the classroom. And it's interesting how those pictures can bring up some of that past trauma. So to answer your question,
triggers you.
Yeah, those photographs often bring back some of those things. And I do remember those mental and emotional places that I was in when I was at, the lowest places of I don't want to say at my heaviest weight. I mean, because I think that's where I was, but at the lowest places of my life. And I want to try and help other people to see like that you don't have to stay there forever either, and that you can overcome that. And it's okay to talk about, right? We know that in therapy and working through the trauma, you really do have to talk about it and you have to work through it in order to actually fully overcome. And it's not blocking it out. I don't ever want to I'm never going to delete the photo.
Right.
No,
that's part of me, and it's a powerful part of me.
That's a very powerful. You should be so proud of that. So I would never want to get rid of, get rid of that picture or anything. That's a huge accomplishment. And like I said, Noelle and I have been struggling. Me more since I had my kids. I did the up and down, right? I would lose the weight, have it stay off for a little bit, blow up again, lose the weight. And this last time for me, I was on that wheel. I was the heaviest I had ever been. Now I'm short, I'm 5 feet. I weighed 200 pounds. I just hated myself. I just didn't want to go out. I became depressed. I have anxiety. And you get to that point where you're like, okay, this is it. This is my bottom. I got to come out of it. And I got to get better I have grandchildren, and I had that goal. The one thing, my son was getting married, and I didn't want to look like what I look like in all the pictures. So for me, what I did, I chose the medication route. I tried all the other diets. I'm not an exerciser, so because my numbers were crazy, I was approved to be put on Ozempic. But because my insurance, for some reason, didn't cover it, even though I was borderline diabetic, I was like my blood pressure, I was considered obese. And so I had to go the prepay route. I have a prepay, sorry. And it definitely works for me.
Good. Yeah. And I actually have utilized the medication as well after weight loss. It's actually been recently, it's been in this last year because the food noise never goes away. And
that's something that I never knew was a thing for people, was food noise. I thought it was just me being like this obsessive person. Oh my gosh.
It is definitely something that I feel like a lot of people struggle with. And unfortunately here in America, we struggle with this thing called fast food and highly processed foods, which by the way, are loaded with chemicals that make them highly addictive. And
just talking about this,
like sugar actually the co-founder of our company did a lot of research, and you can find this online too, but they say that the effects of sugar on the brain do the exact same thing as the effects of cocaine. So essentially you get that dopamine hit from from sugar the same way that people do from cocaine. And we want to be like, like, why am I like this? And the problem is because the food that we eat is so highly addictive and so pumped with those things that we do crave it, and we do want the next hit. And so I think there's a lot that needs to go into that too. And from what I found too, even on my own journey with the medications, right? Like, the medications are a great tool to help people to quiet the noise, maybe slow the gastric emptying. I mean, there's like all sorts of different reasons why you take the medications. But again, without actual habit formation and changes within your food, it can be really difficult to not only get the weight off, right? I've had so many clients come to me that are like, I've been on the medication for 6 months and I've only lost 3 pounds. And I'm like, have you changed your eating habits? They're like, no. Okay. Well, yeah, and the same issue with surgery, right? You can have the surgery, which I was again pre-approved for that surgery, and then I'm like, okay, I could have had the surgery, and that's a tool to help me get the weight off and get it off pretty quickly, probably. But unless you change your eating habits, guess what? A lot of people gain their weight back. They say like this huge statistic that people that have lost a significant amount of weight, so over 100 pounds. Typically 75% or more of them gain their weight back within 5 years. And it's because we use these tools to help us get there. And then if we don't change our habits and we don't
change this.
It doesn't change at all, right? And so, and I'm dead set that I'm not going to be in that statistic. So
good for you.
Sometimes I get a little bit competitive. One of the other questions that for me
that's
was
not like, a bad thing.
How are you, keeping going? And I think that's one of the things that's keeping me going too, is I don't want to be like, I don't want this to be a yo-yo forever. Like I've done that.
The yo-yo.
You guys have. Like I'm tired of doing that. It's exhausting. Yeah. I don't want to be on a diet for the rest of my life. I want to have a lifestyle that's going to be sustainable for me. And I think I finally found that. And does it look different than what it used to be? Absolutely. I'm not going out every Friday night and eating pizza and drinking beer. That's just not what I'm doing. Because if I did do that, I'd probably gain my 200 pounds back, and I don't want that. And number two, I didn't feel good when I did do that, So I feel so much better now.
No,
I was not an exerciser either. I lost all of my weight without exercise. So
did you really?
All 200 pounds. I never stepped foot in a gym. I never worked out.
I love that.
I didn't know that.
It is 100% nutrition. I started working out after I got to my goal, and all I did was I bought a treadmill and I started walking because I was physically able. And I just want to like point that out to some people too, because I know some people hate exercise, and I used to be that person.
That's Diana. She hates
I
exercise.
never ran the mile. Like I look at this, like, and I have to tell people, this girl didn't walk ever. She didn't run anything, right? And so it's so crazy to me that I'm like, okay, 100, and I will fully endorse this, 100% of weight loss is attributed to nutrition alone. You do not have to exercise to lose weight. That is a total myth. Everything that you're consuming in your body is what's going to cause you to get to your goal weight. And does exercise help? I think absolutely. And I think now it really helps with my mental and emotional state, and it really helps me stay at my goal weight. So I do utilize that as a tool to help me stay healthy, right? It helps with healthy brain function, healthy blood flow, all those things. But during weight loss, it was not necessary. So
it's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm stunned, and I'm so happy to know that.
And I think we get this misconception because in school we're always told, oh, you just need to eat better, work out. And you're like, okay, what does that even mean? Number one, you tell me to eat better. I don't even know what that means. And number two, yeah, I can go work out. But a lot of times what people do is they'll go work out and then they reward themselves with more food because they went to the gym and they worked out.
They can have that snack.
Yeah, you're undoing everything that you've been doing in the gym, right? They always say you can't outrun your fork. That's 100% true. I mean, you can go and do all the workouts you want, but if you haven't changed your nutrition, if you're still eating McDonald's, it's not going to do you any good.
Right.
So true. So true.
No, absolutely. And I've heard that not even just from you, like recently, like everything that I look at, it's like, it's all about nutrition. It's the working out is good for you, for your cardiovascular, for your muscles, for your bone density, all of that.
Right.
But it's not something that's necessary to lose the weight. It is.
And it
It's
can
all
actually be really harmful for people, especially in the obese to morbidly obese category, to work out because you're risking a lot of injury. And so, when I'm working with clients that maybe have, 80 or more pounds to lose, I actually recommend that they don't work out because it can just cause you harm, more harm than good, usually.
Right.
And even in our programs, we talk about healthy movement. We don't even talk about it as exercise because, again, it doesn't have to be crazy. I think people get at this mindset, and then again, it's not sustainable. You're like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to do this, HIIT workout and I'm going to do this. And then they do it for a week and they give up. Why? Because it was hard. They're sore. They hated it. So why wouldn't you come up with something that's going to be sustainable long term? Can you go for a walk for 15 minutes during your lunch break? That sounds like a lot better option to me. And it's probably
same. I can handle that.
It's going to yield you bigger results in the long run anyway, because you're going to be more consistent and you might do it for the full year, right? Instead of a week. And so I think just trying to think about it in that sense too. And the same is true with the nutrition. It's like, you don't have to go all crazy. I mean, but making small swaps. I mean, I will still eat spaghetti, squash, or palmini noodles for my, pasta every day of the week. Why? Because it's a really great healthy option. So I've just been able to make some of those small changes that I'm going to keep long term. And so I think that's what's been helpful for me too, is to kind of reframe that mindset. It's not like I'm never going to have pizza. I just might have cauliflower crust pizza instead of regular deep dish fried pizza or whatever from pizza, right? Like, okay, well, that's obviously not a healthy option. So finding those alternatives is going to be helpful for people too.
So what do you do?
Like flour pizza. Sorry, Noelle.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So how do you stay motivated? Like during those times, we all get into that point where we're like, right, I want the pizza. And if you do have the pizza, it's okay. But like, how do you keep motivating yourself? Or is it because you've changed what you're doing and that's making you feel better? And that's what the motivation is. Is that where it comes from?
Yeah, I would say so. During my weight loss phase, people always ask me like, how'd you stay motivated? How'd you stick to the program? Number one, the weight was coming off. So the closer I stuck to my nutrition plan, the faster I was losing. So that to me was motivation, because it was like, okay, if I can really stick to this, the weight's gonna come off. Like I said, that first month, it was like over 20 pounds. In 6 months, in 6 months, I had lost 100 pounds. So it was like, why would I not keep doing those things?
Right.
Like my brain, I just kept thinking, this is continuing to work. I felt amazing. I had the most energy, the most mental clarity, like everything had changed because I had just eaten differently. I was eating 6 times a day, which was super weird, and I was losing all this weight. And then, so during weight loss, I think the motivation was the fact that I was feeling good. My clothes were literally falling off me. I had to buy a new wardrobe 6 times. And the compliments too, like people were noticing, people were saying how awesome I looked, and that was motivation for me too. Now, were there times where, like you said, I had the indulgences? Yeah, I had 2 birthdays, Christmas, Thanksgiving during the journey. So it's not that I didn't partake, but I also learned a lot. Like our education taught us to, you can have 2 bites of a food and that's where you get the enjoyment. After that, you're eating it to eat it. So I would keep that in the back of my mind. I would say, okay, maybe I will have 2 bites of the pumpkin pie and let's see if that satisfies my need. And it usually would, right? Then I would drink more water, then and so I think there were a lot of times during my journey where it was just like, I really wanted to preserve the progress. And so it was easier for me to say no because what I was doing was working. So it was like, and you see that with other people, or like they're doing this diet and they're like, their motivation shifts. Why? Because it's not working. So it's like, why would you continue to do something when it isn't working, right? So you have to find something that's going to work, number one, and then that's going to keep you going. I would say now, though, to answer your question, Noelle, like 3 years later, how do I continue to like keep moving forward? It is those trial and error things where I have given myself the opportunity to be like, okay, let's just eat whatever. And I have went on my fair share of binges in the last 3 years. And I have felt like garbage. I have cried. It's brought back a lot of trauma, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression. And those are those moments that I think were key for me to be like, okay, is that what I want? I did all of this work And now I'm back into this mindset of this situation where I had been before, and I don't want to be there anymore. And so for me, it goes so much bigger than just, staying motivated by the scale. I almost don't even weigh myself anymore because I don't care about the scale. But for me, it's like, I want to feel my best, and I want to like emulate that in every aspect of my life. I want to go out in public and people to be like, oh my God, yeah, she does look like she feels good. And when I eat like garbage, I don't emulate that.
Right,
People can tell, my husband can tell. He's like, did you do something? And I'm like, maybe, I get like hostile. And so I think there was these series of moments. And again, I did OA actually after I'd gotten to my goal weight. It's so crazy how these things happen because I knew I needed some more mental and emotional work. I had been working with multiple counselors and therapists to work through this like binge eating disorder. And it was like, oh, well, you don't look like you're overweight. Even my doctor said that when I wanted the medication. I'm like, I'm not overweight. I need help with the food noise, right? Like you have to like advocate for yourself.
Right.
But yeah, I had decided I wanted to work through the 12-step program just to kind of see if I could get some more of that like trauma and those deep rooted things worked through, because I knew I still had a problem. And I finally feel like I'm on the other side of that. To where I have actually overcome. And that actually, again, most of that's happened after I've gotten to my goal weight.
Right. And I think what happens when you see people that do lose the weight and then, a year later, they've gained it all back and then some, they think that they get to that goal and then they're like, okay, I'm here. Now it's just going to be magic and it's going to stay that way. So where you've done more of that, I think that's definitely a credit to you to show that you're like, okay, that's it. I'm done. This is my life. This is what I'm doing.
Well, and I set so many new goals for myself. And I feel like that's probably been one of the number one reasons why I've been able to stay at my weight. So 6 months after I got to my goal, I scheduled my skin removal surgery. So I had my first skin removal. I had my arms and my legs done. And I was like, God forbid if I gain this weight back.
I know, right?
Insurance didn't cover that. I had to, it
no,
was
I know.
$15,000. I paid out of pocket up front. I had to pay it when I went in because the place, you had to pay all up front. And that was a huge decision that I was making in my life too. And I was so unhappy. Like, I don't think people talk about enough too when you get to your goal weight. I looked in the mirror and I did not like what I looked like. And it's not because I was fat anymore. I wasn't. I had lost all the fat, but my body didn't look like what I thought it was going to look like. I thought I was going to look like one of those supermodels.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Right.
Right. And somebody took a pin and they stuck it in this belly, and then it was like, ooh, it was like a balloon. And now, and I still have my stomach skin, but that's easier to hide. So I'm waiting on that surgery. I'm going to do that too. But my arms, I was so self-conscious. I would not even wear any sort of shirt that would even show my arms. And so, you go through these, and it's so interesting. Like I said, these cycles and these phases. And I always want to share about that part of my journey too, because one of my fears when I was heavy was like, oh, I'm going to lose this weight. I'm going to have all this skin. And some people I've talked to, that's holding them back from even losing the weight. They're like,
really?
I don't want to have loose skin.
Right.
What? I would take the loose skin any day, but it does play. It plays with this. And it can cause a lot of different things. Because again, you get to that, I lost 203 pounds and you're like, oh, I'm going to live my best life. And then you look in the mirror and you're like, and I still look terrible, and I remember saying that to myself, and eventually I had to embrace it. But I'm like, no, this is, and it's something within our control, so I did have that surgery and I'm very thankful for that. And then after the surgery, I had some complications. Again, this is why I ended up having to go and do some more mental and emotional work, because I was getting into old habits, and it was rough.
I'm sure, because you're like, okay, I don't feel good. This food is going to make me feel better.
Right. Or, this was my
was my comfort thing, and I'm only going to do it once or twice, and then I'll be fine, and I'll go back. And I've been there doing it.
Me too.
Doing the same thing. So the skin surgery, like, I will admit does scare me because I know when I lose my weight, I'm going to have a lot of extra skin. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for that pain.
I'll be there supporting you, and I promise it's not that bad. And it's seriously, I tell people there's like a few different things that I feel like are the best purchases I've ever made. Number one was this program and investing in my health. Number two, the skin removal surgery, absolutely hands down. It was totally worth it. I would do it over again, even though I did have some complications. And number three, I did buy a treadmill, and that has been lifesaver because I ended up, so I had my skin removal in 2022. So I got my goal weight in 2021. It was like October 2021. Again, I waited until June to have my skin removal surgery. They want you to wait so many months so that you can maintain.
Sure.
They actually want you to do that.
Yeah.
And then, but right before, it was like 2 weeks before my skin removal, I ran my first half marathon.
Well, that's amazing.
That's so awesome.
Shape of my life. I had bought this treadmill and I was like, oh, I'm gonna like start walking. And then I started falling in love. I fell in love with running. Now, not with anybody else. It was all in my home, all on this treadmill. And I was like, oh, I'll sign up for this half marathon. And I did. And I did it. And it was amazing. And then 2 weeks later, I had the skin removal. So I went from absolute best shape of my life to then being laid up.
Yeah.
And man, does that play on your brain too. And just like you said, Noelle, like I started saying, oh, this food's going to make me feel better, you know, and because my other coping mechanism that I was using was some of this exercise, and I wasn't able to do that anymore.
Oh, so you weren't able, right.
Yeah. And I have a highly addictive personality. So a lot of times I replace one addiction with another, you know, so food.
Running is a really good addiction. That's not a bad
It can be. It can also be really unhealthy too. You know,
if you go overboard.
Yep. So finding a balance is good. Trying to limit addictions.
So, but tell us about your next goal.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So again, I ran the half. 2022 and 2023 were kind of like hard years for me. Like I said, that's where I really started working through a lot of the mental and emotional things that I really needed to work through. I'd suppressed so much that I was, again, trying to figure out and I wasn't super reliant on food. It's not like I gained a bunch of weight back, but I saw old habits creeping back in. I knew I needed to make some changes so that I wasn't going back. And so then 2024 hit, that's when I started 75 hard. So I was mentally at a place where I was like, okay, I can really focus on good habit formation. And then, this summer I was just thinking, I was like, okay, I should do another race. Cause I'm that type of person where I have to have that next goal. Otherwise,
right.
I'm
like that.
You're like, what am I going to do now? And so I kept thinking, what do I want to do? I'd been following endurance athletics for a while. I'm super inspired by a lot of endurance athletes. And I've watched, the last 2 years, ever since I ran my half marathon, I was like watching all of the world marathon majors. So I decided I wanted to run a full marathon.
Wow.
And again, if people don't know me, I go all in, which is, that's why I lost 200 pounds, right? Like when I make a decision to do something, you better bet I'm doing it, you know? And that's motivation for me. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to run a marathon. And then I thought about them. I listed out all the marathons around me. I live in Wyoming, so there's not a lot. And I'm like, okay, I could do this one or this one. And I was like, no, I need to do a world marathon major. So I'm actually running the Chicago Marathon next year.
She got her letter last week. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you. That's so awesome.
Yeah, I'm running for a charity team. I I obviously don't have a qualifying time because I've never run a marathon. So you can only get guaranteed entry if you have a qualifying time or if you run with a charity. So I decided to run for a charity.
Oh, nice. That's great.
What charity?
The charity is called Best Buddies, and it's an organization for kids with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And it helps them to, gain access to more resources and kind of more freedoms, I guess, as they get older. So I'm super excited. It's specific, I think, through Chicago, but I know a lot of different have a Best Buddies organization that within there.
Yeah,
city.
our Tom Brady here in the New England was a
Yeah.
best buddy.
Best
He
buddy.
promoted
Yeah.
that for years. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's how we're
So
familiar with it. Yeah, it was from them.
cool.
That
I'm
one.
excited. It's going to be awesome. Yeah. So when I was teaching, I actually have a master's in special ed too. And my
Okay.
nephew actually has some disabilities and stuff too. He's on an IP. So it's kind of fun to, have kind of a connection. And then,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
that's
excited.
that's awesome. Good for you. But I know when you said that you were going to run a marathon and you posted that, I was like, okay. And then the next thing I know, you're like, I got my letter, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. It was so awesome.
Yeah. Because again, I put in for the general lottery, which I had done actually last year. I'd put in for the New York, and I didn't get in because they only draw so many names. It's
Yep.
very slim pickings, if I'm being
Yeah,
honest.
it is.
And again, when I put my mind to something and I'm going to do it, I'm going to find a way. And so I like
Yeah.
went in and researched, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you get guaranteed entry if you join a charity and they allow you on their team." And so I emailed a couple of different charities that I felt pretty passionate about. And they all actually had access, but I chose the Best Buddies one because I thought it was going to
Nice. That's awesome. I love that.
That's oh
So
my gosh. Yeah.
now, when you lost all your weight, were you still teaching?
Yes. So
So,
I had yeah, go ahead.
sorry, what was the reaction of your students when they, you know,
Noticed
see?
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I started in June of 2020. So we were COVID and not in school for the rest of that like 2020 year.
Yep.
And then that summer is when I decided to start the program. So I started in June. By the time we went back to school in August, which we did get to go back to school here in Wyoming, we just had to wear masks. I had dropped probably about 40 pounds over the summer. And so it was kind of noticeable. I feel like, I had a lot of weight to lose. So sometimes it's hard to notice. So it was kind of noticeable. But then with that group of kids, I went from that August 2020 all the way through to the 2021. So it was like by the time Christmas had hit, I had already lost 100 pounds. And so then all the way through the rest of the school year, I think I was down probably about 150 pounds with that group of kids.
Wow.
And it was so cool. They were so supportive of me. So I taught high
I
school.
love that.
And they knew like, oh, Simque's gotta eat her snack or Simque's gotta drink water. And they were super supportive of me within the classroom, which was really actually kind of cool. A lot of the staff knew, I mean, I coached the programs that we offer. And so a lot of the staff actually did the program with me, which was kind of, but my students were the most supportive. It was so cool. They would find pictures of me in the classroom, like when I graduated, and they were like, Simque had a glow up. And like, a picture.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So cool. And even now, I add most of them, once they graduate, I add them on social media. And I've had a lot of them as previous clients of mine now too.
Wow.
Students
That's
as
great.
It's kind of cool. So
I love that. I had a feeling that they would be encouraging and supportive.
yeah, it was kind of cool. Like, and it was cool because we would do like we had like a picture at the beginning of the year and then a picture at the end. They're like, and it's crazy when you see that same person every day. Sometimes you're like, okay,
you don't notice it.
Yeah.
But, right.
9 months of the school year, and all of a sudden you're at the end. You're like, holy cow, 150 pounds.
Who is this person?
Yeah, yeah.
And they could tell too,
like my attitude completely changed too. It's so cool how much better of a teacher I was too, because I felt good and I had the energy. I didn't have to sit on the stool all day and teach from the stool. I could walk around and actually interact with the children. So it was good.
And I'm sure, and I know for me, that's self-talk too. It's like, all right, is my shirt pulled out enough? Can you see your roll? Like, is anyone thinking like what I look like? All of that, you don't even think about it. I'm sure now you're just like, okay, you know what? Everything's good and I feel great. So yeah.
Yeah, always wanted to be hidden. And then when Spirit Week would come around, guess who was the most dressed up? Me.
That's great.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit more about the program. So I know you and I had a discussion about it, but share with us exactly, like, because I know there's different ones that you can.
So essentially we offer probably, I think it's about 15 different nutrition programs, all geared towards different like lifestyles and habits. I typically like to get the people that are interested on a phone call to kind of help pick out what the best program would be. All of them are kind of based in different macro and micronutrients to get your body healthy. We really focus on eating more frequently throughout the day, but smaller portion sized meals. And we teach people how to do that. You know, when you're initially doing the program, we send you essentially your meals for the whole month. We send them to you, you eat them. It's glorious. And we start by kind of teaching you 1 to 2 meals a day, just depending on which program you're doing. But the cool thing about when we're teaching that is we have you utilize a food scale, we have you weigh out your portions, and that's something that I continue to do. So somebody with a binge eating disorder, I needed that structure behind, okay, this is an actual portion size. This is what it should look like. And so
because we really have no idea that
no clue.
It's going to be this size and not this size. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And I needed exact, right? Like, you know, in some textbooks, like, oh, the size of the meat should be the size of a fist or something. And to me, I'm like, well, I got a big fist, or I'll use my husband, right? Like, any way to get more, right? And so what I needed was exact, and I needed somebody to tell me exactly what to eat and when to eat it. And that's what our program does. We tell you exactly what to eat and when to eat it. And if you follow it, like, obviously weight loss happens. When you get to your goal, the cool thing is we teach you how to transition. And because you've learned how to weigh out those portion sizes on the scale, that's what I continue to do. So I still eat 6 times a day. I still eat smaller portion size meals. I weigh all of my food on the food scale. And I can prep that beforehand, you know, so I'm not using my scale all day. I do it on the weekends, but it just makes it so that it's, you know, and I was the type too, like, if you told me that I could eat, you know, all of my points on Weight Watchers or whatever with Krispy Kreme donuts, guess what I was going to do? And
the Krispy Kreme
that would be me, right? And I was not reversing my type 2 diabetes that way. So, you know, I really just had to focus on, you know, what are these healthier options that I was going to create kind of within my day. And now I feel like I have a lot of control and I understand how to do that. So I feel like that's why it's been a lot easier for me to maintain. And again, I still keep a really good schedule, and OA taught me that too. I mean, they have people really focus on, you know, don't eat between your eating windows. So I still have alarms set in my phone that tell me when to eat, because sometimes I forget to eat now, and that's worse. You don't want to forget to eat, right? Because
I never understood people
you're
like,
starving.
How do you forget to eat? Like, I don't get that. That I'm like,
you're busy.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, I'm never that busy that I forget to eat. But
I very rarely forget to eat. I'm going to be honest. Most of the time I'm looking at my watch and I have to tell myself, no, you can wait 15 minutes, Brittany. You're going to be fine. Drink some water. So yeah, I really appreciated that part of it, because I felt like that's what I really needed. I just needed the structure. And that is something that I've continued into what we call optimal health, which is where I'm like essentially maintaining. I'm obviously shooting for ultra health. That's what I really want, is to be like ultra healthy, but I'm in optimal phase right now. And that's where I just feel like I was really lacking with a lot of other things. I didn't know how it was going to look after, you know, the program or after the diet or whatever. So now I have this plan, and I'm going to be on a food plan for the rest of my life. And I've came to terms with that. You know, again, any program that you're looking into, same with like OA, they talk about that. You're going to be on a structured thing forever, especially if you have an addiction. And so just coming to terms with that was one of the mental and emotional things that I had to work through too. Like, I am not going to be able to eat recreational sugar. And that's just that I have to be okay with that. And we say the same thing to an alcoholic, right? Oh, I wish I could drink on occasion, you know? And
no,
you can't never say that to one of my friends that's, you know, going through alcoholism. I would never say that, right? You could just have one. And so I always really try to preface that even on my social media. Like, I don't want my friends or family to say that to me, because I can't just have one slice of birthday cake. And I'm sorry, I can't, but don't pressure me with that either, because that, you know, and so, yeah, I try to be very open about it as well. Like, letting people know that this is what I struggle with and this is what I don't need to do.
And don't pressure me. I love that.
Yeah. And it's crazy, because now I can go out into any social setting and people won't, you know, they just won't. And which is so nice, because I've been so open about my health journey. I don't have to worry about that anymore. And I used to live in this little bubble, in this little shell. And then I used to have all this social anxiety, and I used to be like, oh, I can't go out with them because then they're going to pressure me and I'm going to feel like I have to eat or drink or do whatever. And now I don't have that at all. And it's so freeing. It's so nice.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. Now, when I was saying before with, the talk, the self-talk, do you now say to yourself, oh my gosh, yes, I can do that. Yes, I don't have a problem. I'll do all of this. I feel good.
Yeah. I would say I don't necessarily always have the confidence, but I always say, it's crazy because I feel like and I hear this a lot, like now that I'm like a runner, because I don't even, again, I put it in quotations.
You are a runner.
Don't qualify myself as a runner, right?
You're running a marathon.
I know I am doing that. But I know that I have the capabilities to do the things. And so a lot of it for me is I still have some of that self-doubt or like some of those limiting beliefs. But what I have on the other side of it is I know if I like were to write this down, so like I know for a fact I can run a marathon next year. Am I in the best shape right now? Could I do it tomorrow? Probably not. But what I do know is I can make a plan and then I can stick to that and I can put the things in place in order to make it happen. And
That's
so
awesome.
I think that's kind of how I approach everything now because I've proven to myself so many times. I mean, I have 2 master's degrees in education, and I always said like, oh, I could never be a teacher. Like, and then I went into math and I failed calculus twice, you guys. I can never teach math. I'm not smart enough. And then I find ways to prove myself wrong. Like, actually, I do have the capacity. And I tell this to everybody, even my students in the classroom. You might think that you are the worst kid at math, but you have the capability to do with that whatever you want. If you wanted to be the best kid in the math class, you totally could. So the only thing holding you back is you saying that you can't do it, right? And the only thing that's holding me back from not running that marathon is me not doing it, right? Like I believe everybody can run a marathon. You don't have to run it even. You could just walk it. And I believe everybody can, even if they're, have disabilities, right? There were people that there were kids with Down syndrome that passed the finish line at New York this weekend.
Right.
So, don't tell me that you can't do it. You can. It's about discipline. It's about putting a plan into action. It's about making the choice, and so I'm like a huge believer on, okay, if I have enough discipline, I can definitely do anything.
That's awesome.
Not that I necessarily believe it all the way in the beginning.
No,
I don't know if I'm a runner yet, but
you will be.
Yeah, absolutely. I have no doubt at all whatsoever. That's so awesome.
Yeah. So I really try to like help my clients see that too, because so many of them have these limiting beliefs and it's so hard week after week you're talking.
Me. Hello.
Like,
that's me.
Oh my gosh, what's holding you back? And then
so bad.
And it's hard. And I think, again, for me, it's been a series of these moments and these instances where I've been able to just continue to show myself that I can do it. And I think I think that's what's given me more power and more awareness to say yes to more things because I'm continuing to prove myself wrong.
Right. Well, and we're our own worst critic. If anyone talked to Diana the way I talk to myself, I would probably punch that person in the face, but I can talk to myself that way. Yeah. I'm like, how dare you?
And
so,
sometimes we need to take our own advice.
Right.
I know.
My therapist said to me one time, she's like, would you, because I was like something, I was talking about myself and how I wasn't happy or whatever. And she goes, would you say that to somebody? And I'm like, no. And she's like, then why would you say it to yourself? And I'm like,
exactly.
You know what? Good point there.
It is. And that's a hard habit to break too. So I'm sure
it's very hard.
Yeah, most definitely. So I know you also have another program, within all of your programs, something called a reset.
Oh, yeah. So we were kind of focusing on, a lot of us did like the 75 hard, or we were really focused on like, okay, let's get through the end of the year. Something that was a lot of people struggle with is long-term or like seeing that far in advance. And so what we were trying to focus on with some of our like clients or newer people was doing more of like okay, can you do something for 2 weeks? And when you break it down into these smaller tasks, and this is, I think, what's been motivating for me is I've been focusing on, okay, like I'm gonna set this habit in place for 2 weeks. And when I say it like that versus saying I'm gonna do this for 75 days, because I'll be
Yeah.
honest, I did 75 hard, I was like, oh my God, it's only day 4, right?
Right.
But like if we can break it down into let's do 2 week. And so
Short-term
a lot
goals.
of what we're doing is focusing on, okay, let's get you into, one of our programs really focuses on fat burn. There's a lot of scientific stuff that went into it. Our programs were designed by doctors and people from Johns Hopkins University and the Mayo Clinic. So there's a lot of like science that went into it to get people into a fat burn. But we were doing like these 2 week fat burn blitzes. So it was like, okay, let's do 2 weeks, really solid. So it doesn't seem so overpowering to do like a full month or whatever. So 2 weeks. And then, once you're seeing some of that progress, you're like, oh, shoot, that was easy. I did that for 2 weeks. I got into this really great place. And so let's do it again. Let's go into the next 2 weeks. And so that was kind of like the focus for me too, was like, okay, I needed to like jumpstart myself back into a really good place.
I get that.
Yeah. And
so it's like a little baby step.
Yes.
And if that doesn't work for you, maybe you can tweak it a little bit and then start with another 2.
Exactly. Yeah. So we try to set like really like, good parameters and say, okay, like here's what we want to focus on. And it's a lot like, I guess you could say with like 75 hard too, where it's like, okay, let's drink this much water. Let's eat, do this meal plan and, maybe do the exercise or like whatever fits within your goals. Obviously everybody's different. Like for me, one of my biggest goals now is I really want to make 10,000 steps a day. And I know as a closer that I'm getting to my marathon, I'm going to up that, right? Because I know that time on my feet is going to be the best training for the marathon, versus just going out and running 15 miles tomorrow. Like that is not going to help me. I need to be consistent and just being on my feet. And so I really try to work with my clients too on like, okay, let's break it down. What are the things that you can focus on this week? And sometimes it's like, I'm going to not drink pop for 2 weeks. Great. I think that's a great goal. Like, what are we going to replace it with? Okay, I'll drink more water, trying to find some short-term.
Short-term goals, I think works for me the best. I feel like if it's long out there, something's going to derail me and I'm like, no, 2 weeks I can handle.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I mean that accountability to someone that you're like, okay, yes, I did it, or no, I didn't.
Oh yeah.
That definitely helps you because you're like, okay, I have to tell someone I didn't do
it. And we have our accountability groups, and like one of my group chats has a bunch of my clients and coaches in it. And we're like, every day we're sending pictures of our food, we're sending pictures of
that's awesome.
like all of our stuff to keep us accountable, because I still need that, and I still need my coach. My coach still calls me every week. And I've been at my goal weight for 3 years. So I don't necessarily have to have that, but I need that, right? And so I love that about what we do too, is it's, like we really focus on what's after the after, because once you get to your goal, like I said, and you're going to fluctuate. I think maybe that's what you're talking about too, is like some of those resets. Like some of us, need to like get back to our basics and really get back to the structure. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like I said, I think focusing on small things and just saying, okay, can I commit to this? And sometimes it might even just be a week. Can I commit to this for 1 week?
Right.
And a lot of, the actual changes that I feel like happen come through discipline. I've heard so much about, oh, well, I don't have the willpower. Well, neither do I. If I was left to willpower alone, I would be binging candy all day. And I have to have discipline. I have to say, okay, no, that's not how this is going to work for me. And I have to set a schedule and set the structure and take the candy out of my freaking house, because if I don't secure my surroundings, it's not going to be helpful. And so, I think focusing on those small increments, and I never thought that I was going to lose 200 pounds. Honestly, I talked to my coach and I wanted to lose 20 pounds. That's all I thought I could lose. Wow. And I changed my goal probably 5 times because I didn't know what was possible. It was like, oh, shoot, okay, well, maybe I'll get under 350. Well, maybe I'll get under 300. Maybe I can get to 250, which is about what I probably weighed when I was in high school. And then I was like, maybe I can get under 200. And then I eventually got to the point where I was like, well, maybe I can actually get to a healthy BMI, which I was like, not sure that could happen. But I mean, it
Look
did.
at you, and you did it. Yeah,
it happened.
Yeah. And so I think if I would have looked at it in terms of, oh, I'm going to lose 200 pounds, I would have never, ever gotten there.
Right. Seems too long of a goal, right?
Yeah.
Too big.
And you just like you were saying too, like I didn't think that was going to be achievable anyway. Nowhere in my brain when I was looked in the mirror did this person think I could lose 200 pounds. Like that wasn't even a thought process that I had.
Right.
So it was like, okay, well, maybe I'll lose 20 pounds. And you're like, all right, and then when that happens, you say to yourself, could I do that again? Right? Would I do the exact same thing that I just did and do that again, duplicate it?
Because I know it works.
Okay. And can I keep doing that? And eventually, like I said, it ended up being like this huge thing, but it didn't start out that way. It started out as, I'll just try this. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, this does work. So then I'm going to duplicate it. I'm just going to keep doing it.
That's right.
And then you get in the zone and it just goes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Brittany, thank you so much. I'm so happy to I know we've talked on the phone, but it's kind of good to see each other face to face. I'm so excited that we were able to do this. I'm so happy that you were able to join us. Can you let all of our listeners know where they can contact you, or where, your Facebook stuff and all that information?
Website.
Yeah.
So I do basically everything through social media. My Facebook is probably my number one platform, and it's just under my regular name, Brittany Simque. So you can go there and follow or friend me or whatever you want to do. I do have Instagram as well under my same name. So Brittany Simque, BRITTANYSIMQUE. And then I do have a TikTok account. I don't really do much with that, I'll be honest. But it's at 200 pounds down is my name on there.
I love that. That's a great name.
I took that one. I was like, nope, I'm taking that one. But pretty much, Facebook is the number one method for me. Because
that's where I found you.
My whole life on there. And definitely if you're like, okay, is this a real person? That's where you're going to know if I'm a real person, because I post everything there. So
and we'll put all that information in the show notes so everyone can find it.
Yes.
Can I share this too?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Please do.
Yeah, I have quite a few followers on my Facebook, and I think they would really genuinely enjoy this. So
we appreciate you so much. Thank you so much.
It was great meeting you.
It was great to meet you guys too, and I know I'm going to be in touch, and I know you'll have to follow along on the journey.
You as soon as we hang up.
And if anybody wants to, help donate to a great cause for charity next year,
buddies.
I'll see my link soon on my Facebook. But
definitely. No, that's great.
Yeah,
you've been listening to Life's Journey with Best Friends. For details on any of the things we've mentioned in the podcast, including photos, visit our website lifesjourneybff.com.
So there's quite a few.
You can also email us at lifesjourneybff@gmail.com or visit us on Facebook, Instagram, or Threads.
But we're doing a kickball tournament next June so that'll be fun.
Pick it for a cause.
Yeah.
Might have to fly down there. That sounds fun.
That would be fun.
I love to travel too, by the way. So you never know.
BFFers, thank you so much for joining us this week. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please reach out if you have any questions. We'll have Brittany's information down below, so check that out. But always remember, it is better to have a friend with two chins than
two faces. I can never remember it.
All right, guys. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week. Hi, BFFers. We talk a lot about aging ungracefully on our podcast and are always looking at ways to improve our overall health.
One of the ways to do that is to purchase quality products that are high in nutrition.
Natural Food Exchange is passionate about providing you with the highest quality, natural, and organic products. They are dedicated to promoting a healthy lifestyle through a carefully curated selection of nutritious foods, supplements, and wellness products.
Check out Natural Food Exchange in person at 39 Pleasant Street, Unit 1A in Stoneham, or visit their website, naturalfoodexchange.com.
Get 15% off of your order when you use the code BFF15 or use the QR code on our website at www.lifesjourneywithbestfriends.com.
You've been listening to Life's Journey with Best Friends. For details on any of the things we've mentioned in the podcast, including photos, visit our website lifesjourneybff.com. You can also email us at lifesjourneybff@gmail.com or visit us on Facebook, Instagram, or Threads.
Remember, no matter where life takes you, you are never alone when you have a best friend by your side. Until next time.